The topic is democracy on the Horn of Africa, and we're fortunate to have with us two individuals from Ethiopia to talk about it from the point of view of Ethiopia as well as the point of view of Kenya, where a recent election was held. And of course we have already explained Mr. TDemeke's situation, and now Ms. JHilt will give us some information in relative to Kenya and some of the things associated with Kenya and the Horn of Africa.
Well, certainly my heart breaks for Kenya now, not just because of the thwarted democracy there, but also because of what Kenya has represented and continues to represent in East Africa. Kenyans have always been at the forefront of creating and sustaining stability in the region. A very significant portion of humanitarian assistance and aid to Southern Sudan, to Ethiopia and various regions has come from Kenya. And so with 250,000 people displaced and the recent deaths, the humanitarian crisis that is looming as a result of that should be is a very significant problem. But for that reason, we should care about Kenya because Kenya has cared and does care about surrounding countries. So it's very important.
Well, would you say that when we talk about democracy on the Horn of Africa, Ms. JHilt, that we could say that the way Kenya goes, all of East Africa could go, which is to say that if Kenya is not successful, and I think we already, by Mr. TDemeke, had assumed that Kenya was very, very successful, and this whole thing was a surprise. Was it not a surprise to you as well?
Well, it's a surprise, Kenya having a background of colonialism. There might be an inheritance of some form of democracy, but in spite of that, as you see, many people died, and it's rather surprising to me.
Now, what impact would this have with what goes on in Kenya? What impact does that have on Ethiopia?
Well, in Ethiopia, the case has been testified. Amnesty International has recorded it. In the year 2005, during the election, it was a blatant denial of the people's rights. Many people were killed, and the leaders of the opposition was charged with treason for exercising their democratic right. And this government is a brutal and a dictator one. And had it not been for support of the West, honestly, that government wouldn't have been there. But thank God, there is a bill right now on the table of the Senate, which we call HR 2003. HR 2003 basically is the Ethiopian Democratic Act. It has passed unanimously in the Congress. This bill introduces the protection of the human rights, so that they will not, any government will not take it for granted. All the money, all the taxpayers' money that is being delivered there will not be spent to suppress and oppress the people.
And so there's quite a bit of support in the United States Congress in the interest of Ethiopia in trying to lay the foundation for democracy in Ethiopia. Would you say that?
Oh, yes. In fact, what I would like to add in here is the United States government, this current government of Ethiopia is quote-unquote an ally against terror. But what you have to see is whichever comes to Ethiopia, any democratic government will be fighting, will wage war on terror. But this government particularly is putting terror on the people. Then people should not be misled with that. Ethiopians have always been good friends of the United States. You know, I am a naturalized citizen here. I am enjoying democracy and live freely here. I would like this kind of freedom to go to Ethiopia, you know. Then this bill introduces a very important one. It is on the Senate's table now on foreign relations. In fact, those of us who are here in Nashville went to our senators, Senator Corker, Senator Lamar Alexander, and presented so that they will support this bill. I hope they will do that. I don't see any reason why not. Then, in fact, this will be a precedent for all other African countries. Had this kind of bill being introduced, what we see in Kenya wouldn't have happened now. And these leaders of the dictators are taking it for granted that they suppress their people by the money that they get from the Western donor countries.
And so in a real sense, instead of helping democracy develop in places like Ethiopia and perhaps in some other areas of the Horn of Africa, that we might be pursuing a policy that might help to undermine those who seek to bring about democracy on the Horn, who are presently working in space, right, where they are to bring about democracy. That our policies are not helping those freedom fighters in Ethiopia or Kenya or some of those other ones, because we are more concerned with terror than we are concerned with really democracy, like we might be trying to take to other parts of the world. With that...
Yeah, exactly. You summed it up. I mean, if the United States government is helping the people, and helping government which helps their own people, okay? You weigh the leaders of those countries by how much the people perceive them. If the leaders are the enemy of the people, I don't see any wisdom on the United States government helping those leaders there.
Even if we claim that we're fighting terror, when you are actually indicating that the government itself is placing terror upon the people without any outside third party coming in.
Exactly. In fact, it is the leaders who breed terror. Had it not been for those leaders who fatten up their pocket and getting the people to fight along each other, dividing them along ethnic line, religious line, you know, this wouldn't have happened. And the United States will be loved. In fact, Ethiopia is one country what the United States people should forge a relationship with.
You know, Ms. Hilt, when we come back during this last segment, we want you to look at some of the problems in Kenya, because I think that the real problem there is that some of the anti-government people maintain essentially the same idea that this government is a government of terror, and I'm sure that you have some additional information in reference to deal with that. And so when we come back during this this final segment, we want you to take as much time as you need to talk about Kenya and some of the possibilities that perhaps we've overlooked in the United States in terms of how Kenya and how we might help Kenyans and how Kenyans might help the United States outside of the terror kind of thing, because I think that most of us are tied up in reference to that. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. The guest is